What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of the Rustic Lumber Podcast, and this is the pre-show before Workbench Con 2024. We are here with Jay. Say he's somewhere on the screen. We'll have this edited so that way it makes a little bit more sense. Jay is the creator of our slab servicing machine, the Jointawood slab servicer, and we have him here today to talk about just how he got started and what it's been like for him since the time he started to now. So, Jay, let's go ahead and tell the people a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey, and Zach, he's been fortunate to be here, from the start. And so years ago, let's go back to 2014, 15. I was a general woodworker. It was more of a hobby at the time, but I was looking at getting into it full time. And right over that time, I noticed these live edge products, river tables, epoxies, stuff like that, and it really intrigued me. I wanted to get into that. Honestly, one of the first questions that popped into my head was, how do the guys flatten this stuff? Well, I go online and did a lot of search, and I literally came up empty everywhere I looked, and I knew there has to be something out there for this to flatten this stuff, and as obviously traditional joiner won't do the job. Right, we're working with a lot bigger, heavier, wider material. So I was like, well, the only thing I could come across was, these guys building their own homemade router sleds and stuff like that. Well, I right away knew I wasn't interested. So I thought to myself, well, why can't I just engineer my own machine?
And so, do you have any background in engineering before?
No, I actually do not. YouTube has been my teacher. So
that's everybody's teacher.
Right. That's right. There's a wealth of information there. But so then obviously, I wasn't interested in doing this just winging it, getting parts made and building it, scrapping parts, redoing it. So I knew I had to learn CAD. So that was the first step in getting to look into CAD programming. And that was a learning experience there. Took me probably a good year till I kind of got the handle of it, and I started engineering. Had a day job at the time, and evenings I would come home and work at engineering. I would work till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sometimes, and go back to work the next morning, come back home, do the whole thing over again. And as I was doing this, I'd build parts here and there, especially if I had a part of the process that looked like it was ready to go. I'd get those parts ordered in and build it as I was engineering it. And it was a process, just the fact that I wasn't able to work at it full time and trying to pay all this stuff as I go. It took quite some time. So I think it was in 2020, I believe it was, is when I actually got the prototype completely done. And
did you say you started?
In 2015.
So 5 years?
Yeah, I would say about 5 years. It took me some time. Just, and like I said, it wasn't my full focus at the time. It was kind of a side thing, And I thought there should be, a demand for it in the market, because I kept seeing on social media, how a lot of people are really getting into this epoxy, live edge stuff. And I wasn't really looking at turning this into a full-time business either. It was kind of my own machine for my shop here. And then I got it done and tested, and it worked pretty well. It had a 9-inch helical cutter head on it, and it was just a cutter head, didn't have a sanding drum on it. So then I posted some pictures, videos, or I think it was just pictures actually, on some groups I was a part of on Facebook, like some woodworking groups. And it was crazy. The amount of interest I got. I mean, I had people messaging me, commenting, and wanting me to get back to them. And I kid you not, I spent 2 days, 2 full days, just replying to everybody that wanted more information and interested in it. And one of those was Zach. He reached out to me through one of those groups, and he was very interested. And I told him, just direct message me, and so we kind of started talking from there. And obviously, the prototype it needed a lot of updates, and prototype was basically just to kind of get the concept. But I soon knew, if I want to build these to sell, I'm going to have to do a lot of upgrading. And then Zach, he was pretty interested. He liked the idea. He liked the design, running a helical head versus a rotary style cutter like all the other ones do now. But
now, for people who are just now starting out in woodworking, explain to me what the head is, or what you're talking about there.
Yeah. So the cutter head unit it has a sanding drum in there now as well. So the whole cutter head unit has a 12-inch helical head in there. And so it's basically set up like a CNC machine, like the table and gantry setup. But instead of having a router on your horizontal frame, there's a cutter head unit that has a 12-inch helical head and a 12-inch sanding drum in there.
Got you. And so that allows you to be able to pass over the machine to surface it and sand it all at the same time.
Right. So basically, you would lay the slab on the table, anchor it to the table, and since your gantry is on a straight rail system on your table, that whole cutter head gantry system will follow that rail. So if the rail is, let's say, has a hump in it or like a hill in it, that's how every slab's going to be. That's how every slab's going to be finished. You're going to have that big hill in it.
Got you. Okay.
So,
I said, looks like Zach over here is showing us how it looks now.
Yeah. So that
what happened? Go ahead.
So that was the very first machine on the market, was Zach's machine there. So since his machine, between machine number 1 and machine number 2, there has been a significant updates on quite a few different things. The overall concept is the same, but I've added quite a few extra updates and upgrades on machine number 2 versus machine number 1.
How many machines have you made so far?
About 2 weeks ago, which would have been the second week in January, I delivered machine number 19 and 20.
Wow.
Yeah. So it has really
now go on a 3-year time span.
I was going to say, 3-year, 4-year time span.
I would say, honestly, in more of like a 2-year span, because the very first year when I delivered Zach's machine, that was in 2021. That year, I only sold 1 machine.
You're right. I remember you saying that because of the parts, right?
That bill, till I got that bill, and delivered, it was kind of breaking in and out there.
Oh, go ahead, board.
But since I delivered Zach's machine there in the spring of 2021, I think then he started posting stuff, on his page and his business, Facebook and Instagram. And then through that, I think there was another guy that seen the machine and he reached out to me. And I think it was that fall. I think it was that summer, actually, he placed an order. And by that fall, I think I delivered his machine. And then from there, in 2022 is when I started getting orders left and right. I mean, now looking back, 2022, there was a whole bunch of those orders out of those 20 that came in 2022. And at the time, supply chain was an issue and
right, I remember you saying that.
Yeah. And to get till I finally got rolling and kind of got into a system. Most of those were built last year of 2023. So honestly, all those 20 machines were done in about a 2-year time span, I would say.
Wow. How's that like? And you said most of your leads or most of the people who saw it all kind of came from social media, from Zach posting on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. So literally the very start of this all was through Facebook. So that's where I posted pictures of the prototype, and then it kind of went from there. And then Zach orders his machine through that. And then, now with Zach showing his machine on his social media, it kind of took off from there. And to this day, the only thing I have is Facebook, Instagram, and a website. I have done absolutely no paid advertising yet. So it has been all social media pretty much to this point.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, because that was the thing when we got our machine. I was telling you that you had to do it. I actually got the Instagram set up for you, and because you're kind of hesitant on. I don't know if you're hesitant or just but once I got it set up, and then you started using it, you realized how critical it was to everything.
Yeah, honestly, I think I was reluctant because I don't know. I'm always a little careful on social media and stuff like that. It just feels like the hacker's platform sometimes. But, and I had actually set up an Instagram page, and I wasn't in there more than a day, and it was unbelievable. The amount of, I think it was people that started following me. They were like all overseas. Like it just, and I finally couldn't get into it because it was it was a mess. So I think I got hacked from day one, and I was like, oh, well, and then that kind of discouraged me from there.
Hey, I'm on.
And then Zach, he kept saying, he was like, hey, you need Instagram. And so he actually set up a page for me and got it started because he understood Instagram a little better at that time. And honestly, now that is my go-to platform is Instagram. I still have Facebook, but I'm not as active there.
So what's it like as a small business owner especially in the woodworking industry, to just have your leads? Yours, honestly, if anything, it's user generated content. So even if you're not really posting content yourself, most of your leads are coming from your other clients or customers posting off of that. What's that like for you?
Honestly, it's kind of it kind of takes care of itself, because of I do try to keep up with the content on Instagram, but other users, they put stuff out, and that has really got me out there. It's got my brand out there, so that has been amazing. Just the fact that once you start having more machines out there, most of these people have Instagram pages, not everybody, but Instagram or Facebook, and then they start sharing their stuff, and it just kind of goes from there. I feel once you get up to a certain point, I feel like it kind of explodes. It just kind of takes care of itself from there.
It compounds. Social media compounds.
It does
for sure. I would say, Zach, you've been using it since day one. You are the original OG machine. And so, we've had Jay come in there a couple of different times and upgrade it and do different stuff and add more features to it. So, what's it been like, starting from the ground up and being the test, basically you're the tester, you're the ground zero. How's that been?
It's been great. And then something that's also impressive to start your own brands. It was pretty much simultaneously. It was the exact same. Really, most people would imagine this scenario that Jay would have had no chance and would have been crushed, because that first year, like months that he came out, because when Jay and I talked originally, he said, like what Jay mentioned, the machine that he posted on these Facebook groups was a prototype. And he said to me, he's like, the reality is I have to go through with a fine tooth comb and, make some design changes that are critical for the longevity. And it took, I think by the time that Jay and I started talking till the day that he delivered, it was essentially a year's worth of time, because he had to redesign it. And then for the first time, have all the parts made and make sure it actually fits right. But on that same time, because I don't even remember, and then, things were just taking long because of the nature of it, but I was patient with it. But at the same time, it was probably 4 months or so before, it was right before I think he was about to get the parts made or cut or assembly, that Woodmiser came out with their Slabmiser surfacing machine, which a lot of people have now. But at the same, like I said, simultaneously the same year, the Slabmiser came out, which obviously everyone in this woodworking world knows everything about Woodmiser. They're the biggest sawmill brand around, and they make tons of different molders and stuff like that. So when they came out with the Slabmiser, and I even told Jay, I'm like, man, I'm almost thinking about he's like, no, I understand, but the thing is, I knew I really wanted his machine because I like the fact how it has a planer head versus a router knife, so it cuts smoother. And then it has the built-in drum sander, which is substantial, because anything comparable that can drum sand, belt sand, it doesn't matter. But anything that goes 6 foot wide, you're talking about a wide belt sander that's $80,000, and a monster of a machine. And all it is a one-trick pony. It's a sander, not a surfacing machine that actually makes the slabs flat. So, and then also I like the fact that it, because we're big about, building up brands from, with grassroots efforts. So I wanted my money to go towards someone building their dream versus, because Woodmiser wouldn't even have they wouldn't have known who I was. I would have just been a name on a ticket to ship out a machine that is mass produced. This machine, I knew exactly who the dude was and where the money was going, and it was being handcrafted. It's made by the guy that engineered it, that had the parts made and put it together. So, and then his name was on it too. So to him, it was much more critical to actually care than just a big company like Woodmiser. With Woodmiser, the priority is the profit margin. If they're not making much money on machines, they don't care. With Jay, and with my machine, which we've talked about before, but the reality is long term, he's lost money on our machine. But I wanted to make back to him with the efforts of promoting into social media and helping him get exploding. But I wanted to, it meant more to him to make a machine that was innovative and quality versus just making a buck, because he could have easily, for the price he sold me it to, just I just got to slap this thing together, And then even since then, a few odds and ends that because ours was essentially the guinea pig, which has held up great. And it was just, because I'm always coming up with ideas of new ideas for this or that. And so Jay and I are always, messaging back and forth on different design techniques. Well, and you're designing that super machine that you're designing right now, which kind of is fermented from you and I pondering on stuff for the last 2 years. But that was really the biggest reason is, I seen the benefit of the machine, and I just like the fact that, I'm getting it from someone that cares. It's just not a big company because honestly, I don't even know. I know that Woodmiser is American made, but does that really mean and as inexpensive as they sell that Slabmiser, I honestly just have a hard time believing that a lot of that, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it is stamped from overseas, or, a bulk of it is prefabbed and then they, just assemble it here. But that was essentially the biggest part. But once he delivered that machine, that was when I was like, man, you gotta this is where it's at. You got to get into the social media. So I actually created the Slab Planer page and then got him onto it. And then the first couple months, I was pretty much managing it, where I was posting the pic. I got it edited, got the pictures posted on there, started doing some videos, and then, since then I haven't done anything on that page because Jay's taken over on it. And like he said, now that he's getting more users, the user generated content is compounding on itself. So now really all he ever has to do anymore, because like the reality is with that machine, I mean, it's the same thing over and over. So you can only do so many reels or some that he creates himself, but he still does stories with updates. But the user generated stuff, he's getting tagged. I mean, from what I see, it has to be at least 3 times a week that different users are tagging him. So then he just simply shares that. And that's the most important thing to the new customers, is they could honestly care. I mean, I wouldn't say care less, but it doesn't mean that much when the business owner's promoting himself versus his customers. Because when people see one guy after another that they haven't seen before owning this machine, they're like, man, this has to be a pretty good machine. Like, it seems like every month there's someone new with it. So that was, I know that was a big benefit, was getting on, and everyone in the woodworking uses Instagram. I mean, there's woodworking stuff on TikTok. I don't waste time. I don't know. I mean, if you want to like get followers for fun, TikTok's great. But if it comes down to business, I mean, there's probably other genres of business it works good, but not here, like, that's pretty much how it's gone.
And like I said before, the Instagram is my primary go-to for social media, simply because it has brought me much better results. I think Instagram has probably doubled, if not tripled, the results from Facebook.
Yeah. So what have you, when you started this brand and this machine, were you originally, because obviously once you start building art and stuff, you've seen the reality that like this is something more than just a hobby to pursue. Did you think in your mind, what was like your game plan? Or, I mean, were you thinking way more complicated before on how you were going to market this than what it really turned out to be?
Well, honestly, I thought it would get to the point where I'm going to have to hire some marketing business, to manage the page, to create content and, push it out there. But at this point, I have been busy enough with just orders coming in from user generated content where I did not have to put any money into it. And obviously, I'm not set up to mass produce these. So each individual machine is assembled right here by me. And I now have a part-time guy who's been helping me with this, but every single machine is assembled by me. So it's not like I can pump out that many machines. It's a big machine. It takes some time to get everything assembled and wired up and tested and all that. And at this point, I'm still doing all the deliveries as well. So, with doing the deliveries and building machines, it's a full plate. And last year, I think I did 12 or 14 machines in 1 year, which I thought was definitely better than I expected.
Yeah.
So
this partnership between the two of you has really, it sounds like, collaborated to really not only just boost you up, but it's led to a new project that you guys are talking about. So you got a new machine in the works, Jay?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. Right?
Can you give a little sneak peek just to tell the people what you're working on?
Yeah. So I think it was a year ago. I had announced that there's this other machine that I'm working on. Last year, I released the smaller model of the flattening machine, which is the very basic. I call it a shop series or entry level, whatever you want to call it. So it's a very basic machine, and the idea was to get my price point down to where, these hobby woodworkers, the weekend woodworkers, people that do this kind of as a hobby or even a small business, wanted a machine that's a little more affordable for them. So I went and, put together a machine that's very basic. So with that in mind, I have a new one coming. So I guess think of it as the other spectrum. Because the first machine I come out with,
top tier one, right?
right. So there'll be 3 series. The first one will be the shop series, which is a very small one,
Right.
very basic. And then the next series up from that is the commercial series. And then the one I'm working on now will be the industrial series.
Oh,
So that one's going to be essentially, it does the same thing, but it's just going to be bigger and more powerful.
Yeah. And it'll have, I went all out on that one with the, let's say the extras, the bells and whistles. I can't go into too much detail yet.
Right.
I'm actually just cleared out a spot here in my shop to start assembling it now. So hopefully within a few months here, I'll actually be unveiling that machine.
Yeah. Right. So we got first dibs, right? Right.
Right. I'm too cheap to want to buy it. I like the machine we have. It's making me money right now. So, but it would definitely be well worth the money.
For sure.
But the other thing that's working on, because the whole thing is built on branding, that this is taking off so good, and your brand is becoming, it's becoming in the niche woodworker world or wood processing world, a name to be known at Jointawood. It's because you and I are working on right now. It's going to be a ways till you want to offer it, but looking at having branded equipment and more than just a surfacing machine, we're actually getting a sliding table saw. So the thing is, like with you, Jay, like you said, you're small. You make what you like. Your specialty is a surfacer, but you're limited for, multiple reasons, the size of business, R&D, production, all that stuff. So trying to expand into all sorts of new machines like stationary planers and joiners and table saws and stuff, that'd be a pretty tough thing to get into. And then to know that you're even designing it, as good as designs that have been used for decades so far. And so you're looking at in the future, like our table saw we're testing out, but to be working with some other manufacturers to produce some other heavy equipment for you that you have under the Jointawood name.
Right. So the idea is, and I pretty much made up my mind on this, the flattening machine, that's going to be built right here in my shop, by Jointawood. But the question that I kept coming back to was, is this flattening machine, is this going to be sustainable for the future? Is the slab industry, the river table industry, how long is that going to last? You can use the flattening machine for other purposes like tabletops, beams, fireplace mantles, and stuff like that. But is it going to be enough to keep me going in the future? So I thought it would be best if I prepare myself for that. And that's what I was thinking about, expanding my product line, and kind of reaching out. And obviously time and space and all that just doesn't make sense for me to engineer it. And like you said, those machines are already engineered. They've been around for years. So it doesn't make sense for me to try to reinvent the wheel,
And also you need to, your clients that right now, your business, like you said, is a one-trick pony. You sell one machine and then your clientele, you don't have nothing else to offer them, then in expanding into essentially what you and I talked about. You're not wanting to get into like Grizzly where they literally have drills and stuff. Your goal is heavy duty wood processing equipment. So the first thing we're trying out is this CNC controlled sliding table saw. And then, a few other, like you said, you want to get into actually having a high capacity CNC router machine to be able to offer. And what's going to be awesome is having, a whole range of Jointawood equipment. It's not going to be desktop type equipment. This is your plan is where like Jointawood is intended. Like if you're a weekend warrior, you're not going to probably have a huge variety of stuff to pick from. But for people like us, where we're processing thousands of board feet, that Jointawood name is growing for that reputation.
Right. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. Because just like you said, all that small stuff, the drills, the chop saws, the sanders, all that, the market's already saturated with those kind of products. And I feel for me to try to sell that, I think it's going to be so hard to become a prominent name with those kinds of smaller equipment, because there's so many out there. And then obviously, that how are you going to make a business around that if you have already from out of the gate, you already have competition that you can't compete with, because a lot of these smaller pieces of equipment, they're mass produced, by big companies. Well, I'll never be able to compete with that. So
it's finding a niche. It's finding a niche market for you to be able to work within and find find a pain point that our target customer is really going to be needing. And so, while it may not be the power tools or that level of things, that there's other tools that can be used within the commercial or the higher end woodworking industry that you're like, this can make their life easier. And so those projects and by finding ways to do that and engineer, you made a whole machine because you're like, you know what? It's going to make my life easier. So I can't wait to see what you create and just to see more products with the Jointawood brand. I think that is a really unique story to have a brand that is built from the ground up, that is on such a huge level. Like you're not making something small. You're not making this tiny little brand. Like these are huge machines that do a lot. Like Zach said, we go through thousands of board feet. You've seen, we post the videos, you've been in the shop, you see all the slabs that we have, and having something like that not just, we don't even just use, we have our clients, our customers. We have other woodworkers who are like, hey, we need this surfaced, and can you guys do it? And so that opened up so many opportunities, and being able to see just that Jointawood brand, especially getting a friendship and a partnership out of it, that Zach just able to, you guys are able to bounce back and forth and really build up this thing. It's awesome to see, especially somebody who's not the woodworker. When I'm coming in, I'm thinking that, and I told Zach, I said, everything inside Rustic has messed me up from when I look at stuff outside of it, because I think that this is industry standard. I'm like, okay, so everybody's got this stuff dried, it's all organized, everybody has these giant machines, and come to find out that they don't. And so being able to see that you guys have really collaborated and worked together to build up just this Jointawood brand, I know it's got to feel almost surreal to you.
It does, honestly. And I talked to my wife about this numerous times. It's been like 4 years ago. This was basically non-existent whatsoever. Like there was nothing. To see where it's at now, and I have 20 machines out and more on order, and got some pretty awesome stuff coming. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and just not the machines you're making, but it's supposed to be tomorrow, but we get our new sliding table saw, which is going to be exciting. Which some people like, and that was an effort. Because essentially those products, when they come out throughout the next couple of years, you're obviously not manufacturing them, but you're taking the liability and the surety that it's a quality piece of equipment. And a lot of people would think, well, how hard is that to just buy pre-made stuff and slap a sticker on it? And surprisingly, it's not as simple as just calling someone up and being like, oh, I need a table saw. Like there's hundreds or thousands of heavy equipment manufacturers out there, and to filter through them and to find ones that are actually built with quality And that's what would be nice too, is people will know, even if it's not a machine that you're producing, that it's something that you're on a personal level, had tested yourself and made sure it's a quality piece of equipment. And that's essentially like this first piece we bring in. That's what we're going to be doing is, run it through the ringer for the next 12 months. And then, as time goes on, there's other machines like we talked about. Really what I would like to bring in and under your brand, we got this table saw. I would like to someday get a big 24-inch stationary planer and a joiner. Because I'm assuming, especially when you're smaller, to keep your product. I think that too many people do this is they try to offer too much. Even if it's not, we're not even talking about tools and equipment, just business as normal as too many people think they got to be able to do everything. Like handyman,
Right.
They think they got to do everything. Like when you find out what's making your money, don't think you have to make everything, do what works and what your brand is for.
Right. And back to what you said, how people could think, well, how hard is it, to get a machine that's already built, just brand it? Well, you and I both know this was a bit more of a process than expected. And the other thing is, like you said, sift through all these different options, what's out there, and to be able to find a machine that's up to my standards, because obviously I have my standards up pretty high, because my goal is to put the best machine out there on the market, to where it is robust and absolutely great quality. So whenever I bring in other pieces of equipment, I don't want to have the name that his surfacing machines are great, but his saws are crap.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into just scoping out, searching out machines. And not only that, if I'm planning on having these branded machines in the future, now I got to look at parts inventory. I got to look at after sales support and service, so there's a lot that goes into branding machines, and I'm up for the challenge, but I think I got my work cut out yet. So,
and essentially that's, the same thing, with us as well, our brands and products we have, such as our epoxy furniture oil, the hydrocoat. Clearly everyone knows we don't manufacture that stuff. We're not set up.
Right.
I'm not
We
a
got oil
chemist.
shop in the back.
It would be silly for me to think that I'm going to make a quality of, I wouldn't even know where to start. And the same thing, like, we were just talking about, sure, you could probably end up designing a table saw after 10 years and tons of trial and error, but why, when you can find someone that already has above and beyond, what your standard is, and but you still have to have something that you make yourself, so you're just not, a flat line, not making it, because then people don't take you serious. But you can,
well, it's not the fact that you're not making it's the fact that you're building a brand that not only, even if you are quote unquote using parts that already exist, you're taking those existing parts and those existing machines and creating the best version of it. So while you may not be handcrafted and making the saw blade itself, being able to take some of these parts and take the best version to combine them into one is it says a lot. So, and I know like you said, you have a standard. You definitely, it's going to be a big deal for you to make the best version of these machines that moving forward. And so I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Yeah. Jay, do you have anything else you want to add to the people? Tell them where to find you.
I want to add something on there before we get off here. Something I want to do with each one of these little podcasts. So I want to ask, I believe that this last 2 years, your goals have exceeded what you anticipated. But two things, what type of realistic goal are you imagining or setting for yourself? Let's just say the next 5 years. And then also, what is it that you believe that you need the most advice or assistance on to make that a reality in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So, I've talked to you about this, over the time. But the biggest thing, what I want to get to, I don't know if I really have a goal as far as numbers, as far as how many machines I want to get out there. But I do have a goal to where I want to have machines in stock. Ever since I started this, I was always, working off of orders. Well, that kept pushing my lead time out so far. And I have lost quite a few sales because of lead time being out too far. And, that's completely understandable. It's just part of the game. But I do want to get to the point where I have a bigger facility, obviously, to where I can now have machines in stock and try to keep my inventory, maybe not like a ton of machines in stock, but at least have, a few of them to where they can be delivered right away. And then the biggest need I would have, the challenge to get there is obviously financial, because to get to the point where I want to be of having a lot of machines in stock, it takes a lot of money to put into parts, to get machines. You're talking $30,000 to $40,000 machines sitting there in my shop. So to be able to come up with that kind of money to have stock, that's been a challenge. But I'm getting there. I'm working through different avenues to make that happen. But just like anything, it takes time to get there.
So before we log off on here, the end of session, on a marketing standpoint or content creation, what is a question or need or something you want to know more about that you would be able to ask Brandon about? What is something on the marketing and content creation side you need either help or ideas to ask Brandon here before we get off on this podcast?
Yeah, I don't know if I can really think of anything specific, but one thing that I could never understand how you can pay for paid ads, like on Facebook, and it seems like you get no results. So I don't know. It's just
ads. So here's the thing with paid ads, right? And this is where it confuses a lot of people. And between Zach and I, we've done a lot of trial and error, and I've done a lot of research into it. And so the best way that I can tell people is when it comes to paid ads, you need to be very specific with what you're using, right? You need to, they're not even just including the target aspect of it. You need to look at what is it you're doing. Are you selling an actual product or service? Or are you trying to just spread awareness? Or are you just trying to get people to have eyes on you? What is your objective for it? And from there, it's going to be a very specific set of setups, demographics, and so on. But what I have found out is that it's not enough to just say, hey, we have tables in stock, come check us out, right? It is, hey, we have this specific table in stock. This Dragonwood table, this Mappa Burrow table, this here is in stock. Not, hey, we have pre-made tables ready to go, right? Because the way we were setting up ads that were like saying that were for, hey, we have pre-made tables ready to go. We were setting those up as if we have this particular table. And so those are two different types of ads, and those are two different strategies behind it. Two different words of two different copies that you have to create. The creative for it has to look a certain way, and the way you set it up and the demographic you're reaching out to is completely different. And so that's where so when it comes to building that ad, so if for Jointawood, for prime example, if you're saying, I've got this tier 1, the small machine, this is who it's for, what it can do, this is the price, this particular item itself, there's going to be a complete setup versus if you said, hey, I'm Jay from Jointawood. Here's the machines that I make. If you need something, come let me know. Like that's going to be two completely different things. So if they're not set up those correct ways, then you're going to have bad results or mixed results. And especially between what used to work and what doesn't work, and they've changed certain things up. It's just really understanding and getting specific with how you want to do it. And then from that point, there's ways to set up like A/B testing to figure out which one works best, to figure out to really maximize those results.
And I also think that for paid advertising on Facebook, if you don't have a high turnaround product or service, I don't know if it's really that advantage of doing it. For instance, like you said, you can only build so many machines so quick, but if you're selling hair bow ties and you can ship out 10,000 a day, if that might be more critical. So I think a lot of people and I see paid sponsored ads all the time from other woodworker shops like me, where they'll have sponsored ads on Instagram or whatever. And like Brandon said, it's just generic, where it just shows like one random table, but often it's targeting not the correct type of people. And, but with you're better off spending no money on,
For sure.
one moment. If you go around that way, you can go in the shop and the guys are back there. Yep. I'll be out there in just a moment. Oh, okay. I'll be out there in a moment. But, you gotta contemplate what level, are the ads going to be worth it for you? And also how many people, when you pump an ad out, it's going out to thousands of people. How many people in the country even need that machine? You're talking about 100. So at that point,
at that point, even if you narrow it down to your target audience, I mean, chances are is that it's not going to. You would almost do better doing an awareness type thing versus like, hey, I have this in stock, because it's such a very niche, very specific audience that as you've said, your best bet has been organic. It has been the UGC content that has allowed you to get the best leads, because those people see that your target audience are the ones who are going to see that, because they're following all these other people who do that thing within the industry. And since you're more of a B2B seller versus a B2C seller, it's definitely going to be, that's a very specific thing, where like Facebook ads do really well for business to consumer, whereas I do business to business, Zach does business to business, you do business to business, Zach also does business consumer. But when we need those B2B services, Facebook is inside.
Yeah. And also, before we get off on here, but dollar for dollar, let's just say you have $5,000 that you want to invest in marketing. For your situation, you would be substantially better off. One, you not physically, but in a digital world, I say physically, you have some physical matter that you get to keep, but you're better off, rather than dumping $5,000 into ads, whether it's Facebook, TV, radio, whatever sort of paid source. I would believe you'd be better off spending that money to hire a film marketer for, let's say you got like a swamped order of like, you got to whip out these 2 machines in the next 6 weeks. You'd be better off spending $5,000 on a guy to just follow you for the 5 weeks and make a story out of it, which also creates, your daily content. But that $5,000 is going to go substantially better finding someone to be your storyteller and help you create the content. Because you know what, what's going to create attention a lot more is, which would be really cool. I mentioned it to you before, but someday
I was going to say, I would say the same thing.
Create a long format video from start to finish, and not you recording. Like you need a third party person recording you going from, and not just like, we designed the machine and we go get the stuff and we bolted to get like more intimate,
like a little mini doc.
Yeah.
Right.
So and mini documentary. That'd be good.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
But the biggest problem is being able to get the content recorded, and like it can be daunting to try to do it yourself, or you miss a lot, so that's where like just a third person that's standing there, and it might like, especially it takes you a while, but you got a dude, you're like, I'm paying a guy and he's just standing around, but that's what, works though, is if you got someone that is now, obviously, if a budget don't work, you don't do that for 12 months out of the year. But if you were able to, get someone to do that for like, if you knew you're going to have a stacked 2 months with some really interesting things happening, even I've had, Brandon went along with me traveling the country before. You literally even have a guy that travels with you if you're doing a whole docu-series that you pay him. He travels with you through the travel. Because even as dumb and boring as it seems, like, who wants to watch the travel part? Like, surprisingly.
You know what? Kid you not, I was not expecting that. Like, when we went and did the epoxy and we did our trip, we had so many people following and watching it the whole step of the way, from the stories to just the whole process. Like, it was, because it was the first time that we'd done something like that. So it was really surprising of how many people were interested. And it also allows people to see you more. They get to know you. They get to, like Zach said, Zach wanted to work with a guy that he knew, he liked, and he would rather give that time, effort, and money to someone that that personal person. Even if, and I say this all the time, if somebody likes you, they would rather spend more money with you than give it to a corporation. And even if that could instantly get that corporation to drop off a machine that does something similar at his front door the next day, it was worth the wait to really help build this relationship and get to know you more. And so now the fact that you guys have been collaborating and working together for so long, that it pays off in the end. And yeah, 100%. I'm definitely gonna be the one to tell you, having somebody there to really film it and capture it and catch things that you didn't even think about to catch, especially from that angle, is definitely, yeah, I agree 100%. If you're gonna spend money in marketing, let it be for your own stuff in-house, and versus like you outside of it. And you,
that's because that's you can't pump machines out fast enough. You can't compete with Wood Miser, but like Brandon said, the way you can compete is you. So that's the thing. If I had advice to give you on your content side, is the machine can only mean half the amount. The other half is the fact of you. So I feel like that if you were to bump up your content to the next level, that would be the thing, is to get to that point where you're promoting yourself and your story.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think.
All right, Jay, it's been great. It's always fun chatting with you. Tell the people where they can find you.
So I have a Facebook page, Slabwood, or Jointawood Slab Surfacers. That's on Facebook. And then I have an Instagram at Slabwood Planer. And then I have a website. So just type in Jointawood. You should be able to pop right on there. And
I believe even on Instagram, if you type Jointawood, it still finds it one way or another.
Yep, I think it does.
All right, man. All right. I don't think you're going to be at Workbench Con, but we'll definitely be sure to obviously let everybody know about you if they don't already. But it was good talking with you again, man, and we'll see you on the next one.